But we'll move on to the INEOS Grenadiers. Arensman has been rumoured for a long time. He is joining INEOS. He won the Sierra Nevada stage in the Vuelta. He then worked his way into sixth on GC. 22 years old, 2023 at the end of this year. 2-year deal, not a 3-year, only a 2-year deal. Not a bad one, because if he performs well, he'll get a big 3-year contract after that.
This video is brought to you by Zwift. Whether you're just starting out on your cycling journey or are looking for those final tune-ups ahead of a big event or race, Zwift is the online cycling platform that makes things fun. There are 9 different worlds, thousands of kilometers of virtual road, including replicas of real-world climbs like Alpe du Zwift. There's workouts, training plans, events, and even races for every level of rider. Zwift's massive community means you're never alone on the road. So if you want to know more about Zwift or want to start your 7-day trial for free, head to Zwift.com below.
Yeah, what do you think they want from Arensman, Benji? Is he a domestique, or is he just another card that they hope can develop into a big GC guy like a Plapp, like a Peacock, like a Rodriguez?
We often see INEOS use riders that have future GC goals as the super domestiques for other riders in the earlier parts of their career. Carlos Rodriguez at the start of the year, or I don't know if it was this year or last year, was setting pace on Chalet Renard in Provence or something for other riders, and his teammate ended up competing there then. And we see that evolve throughout the years as well, and Carlos Rodriguez is now claiming a higher spot. But Arensman comes in at a higher end because he has already finished 6th at the Vuelta. He's coming into INEOS, and I'd say that he's a Grand Tour prospect in their eyes. I think they want to do Grand Tour GC with Thymen Arensman. I think he's the type of rider that he often reminds me of a Tom Dumoulin kind of rider. But there's one difference that I see between the two. Thymen Arensman, he can have that steady tempo on the climb and so forth. He has that strong time trial. The only difference that I haven't seen from an Arensman that I saw from Dumoulin loads of times, because he did it to Nibali a lot, is that if Nibali dropped Dumoulin back in the day, Dumoulin was able to get that resurgence, that second wind, and counter Nibali after his attack and drop him. He also did similarly at the Vuelta, I'm pretty sure, where he came back to someone who was winning and then overcame that rider. So that's the difference that I haven't seen with an Arensman, that finishing aspect to him as well. Now, for a GC rider, consistency is the most important part, and that's an area where on the climbing, I'm saying that he's pretty damn strong. On the time trial, he's pretty damn strong, but then he has these weird moments on stage that you don't expect it. Let's say a finish of 2 kilometers at 8%, he suddenly loses 19 seconds or 30 seconds. Like in Poloni that one time, in the Vuelta as well, one stage that he did similarly. Those stages he shouldn't be losing time on, and if they can get those small aspects out of him, then he can become a more consistent GC rider than he already is. If you can come 6th in the Vuelta at 22 years old, you can become a top 5 GC rider, top 5 in a Grand Tour in the future. That's 100% true. Can that evolve into a rider that can get on the podium of a Grand Tour? I believe that's always possible with Thymen Arensman. I believe he can podium a Grand Tour. Winning is not going to be easy because there's so many talents now on the board right now. I see their goal in the coming years to have him be able to podium a Grand Tour. Do you see that as a right goal? Do you see that as difficult? Do you see that as doable?
Depends on the parkour and what they can do with his TT. His TT, did something happen to him he got heat stroke in Alicante, right? Because his TT was shit. He lost 3 minutes. He needs his TT to be better than Jonas, better than Pogacar. He needs it to be Evenepoel level for starters, because he's never going to be the best climber. He's 192 centimeters. He really struggles on the steep gradients. Like on Hazalanas, they went super slow on Sierra Nevada stage. On Prairies, let me have a look where he finished. He finished on 4 minutes. He lost 2 minutes 30 to Evenepoel on Prairies. That's a lot on a 15-minute climb. So the steep stuff he really, really struggles with, but this Vuelta largely wasn't, so it was really suitable for him. It depends on the money, as I always say. I don't know the contract, but you're getting all the upside, right? 22, he just came 6th in the Vuelta. He's been on DSM. I don't think things, he seemed a bit cranky about a few things in the Vuelta. INEOS TT setups are really, really good, top 3. And if you've agreed the contract before the Vuelta, before the stage win, he might not be on. He'll be on probably more than I expect, but he's not going to be on Yates money. And then he can be a really, really good domestique because he is big. So on a 6% climb, he can pull really hard in a breakaway as a satellite rider. He can get in breaks, as we've seen. He can get in breaks in multiple Grand
DSM
Tours.
pulls him out.
Yeah, and then they pull him out. But he's capable, which is not every guy can get in breaks, the GC riders, and he can be really useful up the road. So I think it's fine. I'm keen to see how he goes. Big talent, but yeah, his size is really counting against him when there's so many tiny guys that now TT at a crazy level.
I think a spot where I see him going for is, I believe it would really fit in a Grand Tour like the Giro, for example. Longer, steady gradient climbs, stuff like that. I think that fits him so well compared to the steep gradients you mentioned. That is likely going to be reappearing in the Vuelta a bit more in the future. I don't think the Vuelta will keep the non-steep stuff on their planning for every single year now. I really think the Giro fits him. If those time trial kilometers that are rumored, the 70k time trials, that venue popped in the second that he heard that Remco Evenepoel might be intrigued in the Giro. Those time trial kilometers, if those are there, I think Arensman is good for a Giro. And then we look at the INEOS team, for example, and the question is, all those GC riders that are in that team, who of those would be going to a potential Giro as leader, for example? And I see a potential co-leadership role at the start of a Giro for Tijmen Arensman.
Yeah, and especially with Carapaz out the door, and I think someone did the stats. INEOS, we said it last year, the rebuild was starting when we looked at their off-season transfers. It's intensified. They are getting rid of 30-year-olds plus. If you're even Thomas got a short contract, and they're bringing in young riders. And for Arensman, I mean, I wonder, his power meter was overreading so badly all throughout this year. I wonder if INEOS corrected it. Because the Watts Peculiar, that it said he was doing was not correct at all. And then during the Vuelta, actually, it flipped the other way, and it was underreading massively. So, that's why the power estimations are important, because the power meters, sometimes guys are literally riding around. And I'll have a good story in the off season from a rider actually about it, who pre-Vuelta, he sent me his file to say, I let him come on and tell the full story. He sent me his file. He's like, fuck, I was going really hard doing a max taper before the Vuelta. But my was so terrible, but I just took this KOM. But I really do only 5.8 or whatever. I was like, buddy, you did a lot more than that. And he's, people training with bad power meters or different ones that aren't the same as the calibration as their race bike. Anyway, that's a long story about power meters. Arensman's was a bit funny because of the ones that DSM use. But yeah, INEOS getting younger.